Welcome to Terrifying and Twisted.
Do you want a brew?
Heyo!
Alright.
Episode motherfucking 20.
Oh, I can't believe we're 20 episodes deep. I am so proud of us. I don't care what anyone else thinks. I'm impressed. That's a lot of fucking research.
Yeah. And if you don't know us, basically, husband and wife, 2 fishing chairs, in his bedroom, with a microphone.
That's it.
After 20 episodes, Carla still has the shit fishing chair.
If you don't know about the shit fishing chair, I've had it from episode 1. It's collapsed on me. It's unfucking comfy. And every fucking week, I'm in it.
Just buy another.
Honestly, if you could see him sat there, legs stretched out on end at bed, in nice, newish chair. Must be alright being you.
It is.
Anyway, enough of that debate. Hope everyone's alright.
I'm alright.
Kids have finally gone back to school this week.
Yes.
Thank God. I love my kids, but I also like time away from them.
Sit there.
Dickhead.
Right, so we're at that bit of podcast that's becoming a bit of a habit, which is where we tell you guys what we've been watching on telly.
And whether it's good or not.
Give some recommendations. It's usually me who does this bit because Carla, every episode, seems to say, "Oh, have you got some?" And then she has nothing.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So, one thing we've been watching is The Vigil, it's called. That's Channel 1 in the UK.
Yep. And were it written by creators of Line of Duty?
Yeah. It's starring Saran Jones, and it's about a suspect death on a submarine.
But on a submarine, yeah.
That's all I really want to tell you, but really check it out, it's good.
Yep.
The other thing that we watched was Clickbait on Netflix.
We mentioned it in last episode, but we finished it, didn't we?
Yeah.
It's alright.
Would you recommend?
Yeah, give it a watch. But it is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah. And the other thing that we watched was Deceit on Channel 4.
Yeah, we did.
Now, I'm reading it now, and I can't remember what happened, but it was about Rachel Nickel.
Yeah, it were about the murder, wasn't it?
Yeah. Elaborate.
Oh, you've just thrown me. Were it...
Where she was an undercover officer, and she was working undercover. Yeah, she was on the phone to the geezer. And she was working undercover, and she was trying to get him...
Oh, yeah, right. Yes. She was the undercover officer that was sent to get the guy to confess, wasn't she?
Yeah.
For the murder. Now it all makes sense. Sorry. Yeah, that were really good.
Yeah.
We liked that, didn't we? That's definitely worth...
Yeah, and I've just finished Money Heist, which, if you haven't watched, it's dubbed. It's a Spanish series, but if you can put up with the dubbing, honestly watch it because it's brilliant.
A lot of people rave about it.
Yeah.
I couldn't cope with it. That's why you've just cracked on and watched it.
Mm-hmm.
And I know a few others. Kerry couldn't get into it either because of dubbing. But yeah, you say it's proper good, don't you?
You're not a TV connoisseur like me. Oh, that brew is nice.
Oh yeah, we've got us brew like usual. We stopped mentioning us brew, didn't we? But we always have a brew.
I was thinking about it earlier. I don't know if I'd love you as much as my wife if you didn't make a decent brew.
We hate a shit brew, don't we? We know a lot of people that make a shit brew.
Main person being one of my best mates, Yemi George. So shout out to you. You know who you are, mate. You and your shit brews.
Oh, honestly. It don't matter how much I could proper smash a coffee, but I'd just rather do without than ask him. And I'm sure he does it on purpose. So we don't ask him.
Bless him.
Grace makes an alright brew though, doesn't she?
Yeah.
But anyway, right, shall I crack on with my case?
Crack on.
This case I'm doing is purely because of the amount of media it's had this last few weeks. It's an old case, but it has been everywhere.
And I definitely don't know about it, so I can't wait.
I mentioned his name to you, didn't I? And you
Yeah.
didn't know. So yeah, you'll understand why a bit later, but I'm going to take you back to 1983 and start at the beginning.
Take me back.
So on the 21st of November 1983, 15-year-old Linda Mann set off from home in Narborough, Leicestershire, I think that's how it's said, around 7 o'clock to go see some friends. So she tells her parents where she's going and she promises to be back home for 10 o'clock. It's said that Linda was known as a very kind, quiet, but popular and friendly girl. She was very well liked in the village, trustworthy and reliable. So that night, she puts on a coat, sets off to see her friends. She arrives there at about 7:15. Linda doesn't stay very long. She then makes her way to a second friend's house. Apparently she was dropping in to borrow a record. So again, don't stay very long, and by 7:30, she sets back off home. Now, she heads down Forest Road, which led her to a footpath which is known as the Black Pad. It borders the Carlton Hayes Psychiatric Hospital, and it was well known as the local shortcut.
Right, so it's a fucking horrible dark shortcut next to a...
Psychiatric hospital.
Who the fuck would take that shortcut?
Apparently,
Well,
a lot of
people.
yeah.
Not fucking me.
So, Linda never made it home, as you guessed. Linda's mum and stepdad had been out that night. When they got home around 1 a.m, they found that Linda wasn't there. So, her stepdad went out, started looking around streets for her, but nowhere to be seen. At 1:30, they rang the police, reported her missing. On Tuesday, the 22nd of November, the following morning, around 7:20, an hospital porter was walking to work and he took the Black Pad shortcut. He found the body of a young teenage girl laying face up in the grass. Her clothes and shoes had been removed and a scarf was wrapped tightly around her neck.
Right.
So he ran to get help and he managed to flag down a passing ambulance. Paramedics ran, but she was already dead, unfortunately. This body was then confirmed to be Linda Mann. The post-mortem indicated that she had been raped and then strangled using her own scarf. Sperm and blood samples were collected, but at this time, DNA profiling wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
Only information the police was able to get from them samples was the blood group of the attacker.
These motherfuckers got away with so much before
Course they
DNA
did.
profiling.
Of course they did. Now, they found that the attacker had blood group A, specifically the PNG+1, which in the UK is actually quite uncommon. Only 10% of males have that blood group. So while it narrowed it down a little bit, it still meant that there were thousands of people that it could have been. They also noted that the sperm count was very high, which then led police to believe the attacker were more likely to be a young man. So they decided to focus on any local men between the ages of 13 and 34. A huge police investigation was then launched and Chief Superintendent David Baker was tasked with leading it.
Why 13 and 34?
Because of the sperm count.
Right, so why not 35?
Right, I'm not a biologist and I don't know what level your sperm has to be at for a certain age range. I didn't look into that.
Alright.
Okay. It's so awkward sometimes. So anyway, Chief Superintendent... Fuck's sake. Chief Superintendent David Baker started this investigation. Apparently, the whole village, because this place were a little village, were completely shocked. It was a really nice area. It was safe. Everybody said it was somewhere you'd be happy to bring your kids up.
Apart from that fucking alleyway.
No, even this is first incident. They didn't have any crime like
It's still a
this.
fucking creepy alleyway.
Yeah, granted, but alleyways are all over. They are though, aren't they? Anyway, so crime really wasn't an issue at all. And apparently that still stands today. It's a really nice, well-to-do sort of area.
even down the alleyway.
Fuck off.
Go on.
So this obviously put police under massive pressure to solve it quickly because everybody wanted answers. Who's done it? In beginning, there were a few different theories about who it could have been, how they got there and stuff like that. The neighbouring villages is Enderby, and apparently this village backs onto the M1 motorway. So the theory was somebody that was travelling through, maybe lorry driver, you know, sort of thing, jumped off.
Spur at moment.
Yeah. But because of this alleyway where she was found, police decided that it must have been somebody local and had good knowledge of area
To know that it was quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they decided that first job they had to do was basically look at any men that fit into the age range and that potentially were already known as sex offenders. Lots of men from the village and surrounding areas were questioned in a massive door-to-door inquiry. There were a few potential witnesses, but once police spoke to them, nothing really came from it. And eventually, this case just got scaled back. 3 years passed, and no one had still been caught for Linda's murder. Apparently, in them 3 years, no one in the village forgot about this murder. Apparently they endlessly drilled it into the kids not to go through shortcuts, not to go out on your own at night. It completely changed the way parents treat the kids, because nothing had ever happened like it.
They were scared.
Yeah. And they never imagined that it was going to happen again, but it did. 15-year-old Dawn Ashworth were a typical teenager. Just like Linda, she lived with her parents, but in the neighbouring village of Enderby. Thursday, 31st of July, 1986, Dawn had been earning some extra money during summer holidays, and she was working in a newsagent's. She finished her shift around 3:30. She collected her wages and then went home. She'd arranged to meet some of her friends that night, but when she got home, her mum basically said, "You can't because we've made plans and I need you to babysit." So obviously it's 80s and mobiles aren't a massive thing. So Dawn just says to her mum, "Can I nip down to the phone box and let her know that I can't come and meet her?" A friend lived in next village, so Dawn thought, "I'm going to have time to get there and back before my mum needs to go out." So she's seen walking along the main road that leads into the village by two of her other friends. She then headed along £10 Lane, which again is a footpath. It's very well lit, it's very wide, and it's also used a lot. As you come down this path, you come to a point where it forks off. So you can either go down the more open path, which takes you over the flyover bridge, or you can take the other path, which is undercover, dark, and obviously another local shortcut. Dawn was spotted at 4:25 crossing the busy dual carriage at the bottom of this path. She then made her way to her friend Sharon's house, but when she got there, Sharon's mum said she'd nipped out. She didn't know when she was going to be back, so Dawn decided to walk round corner to Sue's house, another friend, but she were also out. So she decided to just start walking back home the same way she came, and it should have taken her about 15 minutes, but Dawn never made it home. At about 5 o'clock, there were two men working at the industrial estate nearby, and they reported that they heard loud screaming coming from lane, but it was summer holidays, there were loads of kids about, they just thought it were kids pissing about.
Fucking hell, and they didn't go check it out?
No. At around 5:30, there was a man in his late teens seen running across this dual carriageway, almost causing cars to crash. He went up this embankment, which if you go up and over it, it leads you to the M1. He then ran straight across the busy motorway. So obviously a lot of people saw and were witnesses to this.
So they reported it at 5 o'clock and then he was seen at 5:30?
No. This information only came to light after Dawn's body was found, and the police put out an appeal for any information. So the sighting of the teenager and the men hearing the screams didn't come out until the police were doing their inquiries. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but what I was saying is, they reported someone screaming at 5 o'clock,
Mm-hmm.
and then he was seen running across motorway at 5:30. That's 30 fucking minutes.
Yeah.
That is a long time.
Yep, I agree. Now, Dawn's body were eventually found on the track at around 8 p.m. Obviously, these people then came forward about this information. Just like Linda, she had been brutally raped and strangled. Again, she were naked. Semen and blood samples were taken at the scene, and when they were tested, it were the same match for what were taken at Linda's crime scene. So obviously the police knew that the same person were responsible for both these murders and rapes.
Yeah.
So once again, a massive investigation were launched. Whilst doing their inquiries, there were a name that kept popping up time and time again, and that was of 17-year-old Richard Buckland.
Pressure's on fucking police now.
Oh, massively.
Yeah.
2 neighbouring villages,
Yeah.
2 brutal rapes and murders.
Yeah.
100%.
And you've got witnesses as well
Yeah.
to this bloke running across motorway.
And screams. It's all a timeline that they pieced together, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, Richard, he was seen hanging around the crime scene. He were asking police loads of questions. He fit the age profile, and apparently he was just acting really dodgy. He even had a conversation with someone at work, basically telling them about Dawn's body and where it had been found and how it would have been laid. So these are things that he shouldn't have really known.
Why do people want to know that shit? I don't want to fucking know how she was laid, mate. I'm trying to fucking do some graft.
I'm trying to read my sarnies
Yeah.
So Richard had originally been questioned the first time round when Linda were murdered, but he was only 14 at the time, so he got discounted basically. On the 9th of August 1986,
Which is strange because you said the age range.
well, 13 to 34. Yeah, but he was discounted.
But go on.
So
It's thrown me that age range, that's all.
we'll look into it after this. We'll give it a Google.
Oh, I don't really care that much.
I fucking do now.
Go on.
You've made me. So, 9th of August 1986, the police decide to arrest him and interview him. He spent the entire day just swapping and changing his story. He went from he didn't see her at all to he did see her but he didn't speak to her. Then he did see her and he spoke to her, to then they walked together and had a conversation, to then they were walking and a man started following them. And then eventually he confessed to overpowering her, raping her, and then strangling her. So on 11th of August 1986, Richard was charged with the murder of Dawn. The police took a blood sample and it came back showing that he was this rare blood group. That were it. They thought, perfect. He's also responsible for Linda.
Yeah.
You look confused. What were you going
No,
to say?
because he's admitted it, hasn't
Yes, he's confessed.
he? Yeah.
So they've obviously taken this blood. It's confirmed that it was a rare blood
More
group.
evidence.
Yeah. Now, Richard never actually mentioned anything about Linda when he was confessing, and when they asked him, he denied ever seeing, knowing, or murdering her. But yet he'd confessed to Dawn's, which were quite unusual. So anyway, the police thought, bingo, we've got him. He's got the same blood group, both crime scenes have got this evidence. So,
Both crime scenes look the same. It's same method of killing.
yeah, the brutally raped,
Yeah.
the strangulation. Now, as this is unfolding, a few mile away at the University of Leicester, Dr. Alec Jeffries and his team had recently discovered DNA. Obviously, as we know it now, it were a massive fucking breakthrough, and it completely changed the way in which forensic investigations.
It changed the game, man.
Of course it did. Now, by chance, the lead investigator had read an article in paper about this, so he decided that he were going to reach out to Dr. Jeffries and basically ask if it would be possible to tell with the samples if it was this person via this DNA discovery. So he agreed and said we can try. So there was a semen sample from both the crime scenes and a sample that Richard was made to give.
Yeah.
And they were sent off.
Yeah.
On the 26th of November, the day Richard's trial was due to start, Dr. Jeffries confirmed that with absolute certainty the same person had killed both of those girls, but the problem was it wasn't Richard.
Right. Is he related?
No. He falsely confessed to murder.
Right.
Now, Richard might have looked 17, but he didn't have mental capacity of a 17-year-old. And apparently, even when he confessed, his family knew without a shadow of a doubt that there was no way he were capable of raping and murdering, because he just didn't have...
Why were it not looked into more?
Because he'd confessed. The police were under massive pressure.
It was slam dunk.
Yeah, the police were under massive pressure to find who killed these two girls.
Yeah.
And with an open confession, it's like an own goal, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not actually clear why he admitted to it. They kind of think that he didn't understand the consequences to what he was admitting to.
It's honestly unbelievable the amount of false confessions there is.
But if we think about it, and if we look back on the history of true crime as we know it, these false confessions come from such an earlier time period because of how the police handled things. They were a lot more aggressive. They sat you in them rooms for a lot more hours than what they're legally allowed to now.
Yeah. Sorry, that was dog barking.
So they were allowed to get away with a lot fucking more.
Yeah.
In terms of interrogating you.
Yeah. I've listened to a podcast, I think it's Wrongful Convictions, I'm not 100% sure, on Spotify. And I listened to quite a few episodes on Spotify and they blew my mind.
A lot of people did. False confessions, it's absolutely crazy. But psychiatrists actually believe that after working with Richard, they think that he either saw Dawn's body after she'd been murdered or he could have actually witnessed it happening.
Yeah, been there.
Yeah. Richard Buckland became the first ever person on Earth to be exonerated using DNA evidence in a trial.
Wow.
A little bit of a fact for you. So this meant, though, that the police obviously were back to square one, and they knew it were a massive possibility that this person were going to kill again. They actually then did what no other police force had ever done before, and they asked any local man living within the villages, surrounding areas, within the age range, they changed it to 16 to 34, to come in willingly and give a sample of blood.
Right.
If it was confirmed that they had the same rare blood group, those samples would then be sent to the university to be DNA tested.
See, the thing is, there's no saying it's even from this place, really.
The only reason they're going off this is because of the areas in which the bodies were found. Only local people would have known.
Which I 100% get, but there's there is still the rest of the fucking UK.
Yeah, 100%. So by July 1987, 4,195 local men had been and willingly give samples.
Good lads.
3,556 were eliminated. Some were still being tested, and some had even refused to give one. The police thought that the killer was more than likely to do one of two things: either completely refuse to give a sample, or he would try and get somebody else to give a false sample on his behalf. So what they did is they asked everybody that were willing to come and do this blood sample to bring ID. The only ID that they had then, which were photograph ID, were passports. So these passports were nothing like what we had now. It were literally your photo glued in with your details.
Right.
So it were very easy to unpick it, stick another photo, and Bob's your uncle. On Saturday the 1st of August 1987, there were a group of men from the local bakery who decided that they were going to go to the pub for a few pints after work. While they were there, 24-year-old Ian Kelly sort of dropped into conversation that he had taken the blood test for 27-year-old baker Colin Pitchfork. Ian said that Colin had asked him to take the test for him because he had already taken it for somebody else and didn't want to get caught. And he had only actually moved to the village 3 weeks before Linda were murdered. So it couldn't have possibly been him. He's no interest at police, is what he said. So, naively, he agreed. During this same conversation, there were another baker that admitted that Colin had actually offered him 50 quid to do a test for him, but he declined. And then another colleague said that he offered him 200, but again he declined. So...
How much did he pay that other fucking geezer?
He's probably cut complete nothing. He's took him completely for a mug.
Fuck.
If I were him, I'd be fuming in that pub, knowing that he'd offered them money, and I've done it for now.
200 nicker.
Anyway, that back in 80s as well.
Yeah.
So, like I said, all he had to do was swap photos. He was very kind and actually drove Ian to the test centre, waited outside to check that he didn't get caught. At this time, the bakery manager, Jackie Foggin, she'd basically sat and listened to this conversation. And at first, she thought it were just men talking shit, but apparently it didn't sit right with her.
Why who says men talk shit like?
I'm not even going to buy into it. There's so much I could say. Don't roll your eyes at me.
So rude.
Not all. So it didn't sit right with her. So in September, she decides to go to the police, pass this information on. They immediately look into Colin's records. They found that he was spoken to in the first inquiries, in the door-to-door, but he never really got flagged up as a suspect. They decided to check the signature on his original statement and then check the signature on the blood sample form. And straight away, completely different. They knew that they had him. So, first thing they did is go and arrest Ian. He actually confessed to everything, told him, basically spilt beans straight away.
I think it's spilled the tea now, not spilled the beans.
Everybody's using tea now, isn't it? What's the tea? Anyway, so Ian basically confessed and told him everything. He then were arrested on conspiracy to prevent the course of justice. He actually was charged and given a suspended sentence for 2 years.
Which he deserved.
Completely. You know, this wants somebody
I suppose he wants fucking know, but, you know, you've done something and it's a massive fuck up. You have to fucking hold your hands up and say...
Yeah, of course you do. So, police then went to Colin and they arrested him. Straight away, confessed to everything. Confessed to both murders, told that he would... Anyway, when asked why, he said purely because the opportunity were there. During his interviews, he explained everything that had happened.
Why is your face changed?
Because he's just a piece of shit.
All right.
It's nothing personal to you, don't worry. Because I know what part I'm coming to, and I just think these poor girls.
Yeah.
So, Colin kindly explained, he did a lot of fucking talking, that on the evening of the 21st of November 1983, he dropped his wife off at a night class around 7 o'clock. Now, Colin had compulsions of exposing himself to young girls. And apparently that night, it were really strong. So he decided to drive around to find a victim. That's when he saw Linda. So he parked his car up, exposing himself to her. Linda panicked, so she ran down the footpath into darkness. Colin actually said that this excited him.
And then he's decided...
So I had to chase her. He actually blamed her. He said that she made the mistake of running into that darkness.
Oh, it was her fault.
Yeah, obviously, you know, dirty bastard. He also claimed that she actually agreed to have sex with him in the hope that he wouldn't hurt her, but he said that she'd be able to identify him, so he had no choice but to kill her using her own scarf.
So the poor girl said,
I'll have sex with you, I'll let you do this horrific thing to me,
but don't hurt me, so then he does it anyway.
Yeah. Now, if that's not bad enough, Colin had left his 1-year-old baby sleeping in his car.
What?
The old time he were doing this. Just parked up at side of the road, left his child, and off he went.
Flashed his cock.
When he were done, got back in car, went and picked his wife up, and went home like nothing had happened. When asked about Dawn, he said that after watching her go down £10 Lane, he pulled up, again, with the intention of exposing himself. But just like Linda, she panicked, running away, which excited him.
Bullshit. He fucking knew.
You know what's happened, don't you? The levels. We say levels and we talk about levels.
Every week.
But it's right.
Yeah.
The exposing himself weren't doing it enough for him no more. It only took that once.
I think,
And then
I think maybe it was doing it for him, but then, like I said, he got excited and...
He knew he could do more.
He won't want to go back to just flashing his cock.
No, that's not good. That's not going to do it for him no more.
But we know this.
Levels, Oppo. So yeah, she panicked and she started running through a gate into a nearby field, but he chased her. He then brutally raped her. Just vile, the things that this, I'm not going to say the C word,
Person.
put this poor girl through at 15. So anyway, he raped her extremely brutally and then he strangled her. He actually said that Dawn begged for her life, pleaded for him not to kill her, said that she wouldn't tell anybody if he just lets her live. But again, wouldn't let it happen. Now, Colin Pitchfork was born on the 23rd of March 1960 to actually a very comfortable fucking family. Nothing in his background would ever make you think that he would turn out to murder. You know, we look at people and there's some telltale signs. You know, there's the wet in the bed, there's the animals.
Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't.
This man, nothing.
Yeah.
Like a really, really high standard of an upbringing, no sort of struggles for parents, just a proper happy family life, did well in school.
And now his poor family.
Yeah.
Obviously, the girls' poor family is the poor girls, but his family as well.
It's like
Their
losing...
son's a fucking rapist and a murderer.
Yeah. And it's like losing a child, isn't it? Colin left school at 16. He started working at the Hampshire bakery, where apparently he was really fucking good at his job. And he wasn't a loner. He had many friends. Everybody spoke highly of him.
You'd have never have thought.
Yeah. He volunteered at the local children's charity. That's actually where he met his wife. They got married in 1981 and then they had their son a year later. Now, when looking into him, he did have a criminal record for exposing himself to young women. His area of choice...
I wonder if his wife knew that.
I don't know. There were nothing in terms of... She probably don't want... I don't even know her name.
Something like that, I don't know if it'd have been where she had to know or whether he could have hid it from her, is what I'm saying.
The second time, he was ordered to go seek medical treatment as an outpatient at the Carlton Hayes Hospital. Ironic. Colin also very nearly had a third victim called Carol Knight. She was an hitchhiker. She actually got into the car with him and he tried to attack her, but she managed to fight him off.
Fuck.
And lucky girl. On the 21st of September 1987, Colin Pitchfork was charged with two counts of murder, 2 counts of rape, 2 counts of indecent assault, and 1 count of conspiracy to prevent the course of justice. The 22nd of January 1988, after only a 1-day trial, Colin pled guilty to all charges except the kidnapping of Carol. He received 2 life sentences for the murders, 2 10-year sentences for the rapes, 2 3-year sentences for indecent exposure, and a 3-year sentence for conspiracy, all to run concurrently. He actually originally wasn't given a minimum term sentence, but they soon changed that to life with a minimum of 30 years. In 2009, he appealed and he had his sentence reduced to 28 years. Then in 2016, Colin and the prison service were getting ready to release him on parole, and he was moved into an open prison. The following year, in November 2017, he was seen walking around Bristol alone, which meant he'd been granted unsupervised day release. As I said at the start of this, it's been everywhere. There are so many petitions currently running all over social media. He's in the news every other day. And that's because in the beginning of June 2021, it was announced that he had been granted parole and he would be getting ready to be released. The parole board described him as a model prisoner, but you know, there's no fucking young girls in there, is there? Or shortcuts. When he was sentenced, Lord Lane, who was the Lord of Chief Justice at the time, actually said, I doubt he should ever be released from prison. Yet here we are. Colin Pitchfork was released only last week.
Wow.
And is currently in a bail hostel in the south of England. And to make this even more of a kick in the teeth, he is placed besides 3 primary schools and 2 nurseries within walking distance. So, as you can imagine, everybody is fucking furious.
But the thing is, right, where do you fucking put these people?
They need to be on a fucking island on their own where they can never ever harm or hurt anybody ever again.
Yeah.
You don't have to shoot them, you don't have to fucking kill them, but do you know what? Get them out of his fucking prison system so taxpayer isn't paying to keep them in a nice warm...
you'd need more than one fucking island.
Yeah, you would, but do you know what? Fucking do it. As Richard had said, put them all on a fucking island. And rightly so, everybody is absolutely furious. Who knows? He could be a changed man.
I fucking doubt it.
That's my feelings on it as well. So that's Colin Pitchfork, ladies and gentlemen.
Round of applause. So we'll go straight into mine.
Let's do it.
Boom.
Oh, just let me move a minute because...
Right, so mine this week is called the Tiede Cabin Murders. Tiede family, it's a German name.
Okay.
So in December 1990, the Tiede family planned to spend their Christmas at their beautiful, quiet cabin in the mountains of Utah.
I'm assuming that it didn't go to plan.
No. Which they did most years, and I bet that was absolutely lovely.
Oh yeah, we love a good log cabin, don't we? In middle of nowhere.
So the main man, the head of the family, is Rolf. He was born on 29th of September in 1939 in Germany. When he was 11 years old, he immigrated to the US with his mother, and he met his wife Kay in the 20s. Kay was born on the 16th of January 1941 in Nevada, and they fell in love.
Okay.
They got married on 24th of May 1963 in Salt Lake City. They settled in, I think it's a place called Humble in Texas. They were very big family people, devoted to the religion, and they wanted a big family of their own. First few years of the marriage they couldn't get pregnant, so they adopted their first child, a girl called Lene. And 3 years later they adopted again a boy called Sean. A few weeks later, after they adopted Sean, they discovered Kay was 2 months pregnant.
Oh wow.
With their third child, Trisha. So Rolf and Kay were devoted parents. Rolf was a successful salesman. So, like I said, every year the family will visit this log cabin, very remote, a small town in Utah, a place called Oakley. It's said that at the time, in the 1990s, there were just over 500 people.
So really tiny.
Yeah. The log cabin was 4 kilometres away from the road, so they had a parking lot where they would park the cars and they'd use the snowmobiles up and down from the cabin.
Mm-hmm.
Bet that were a right laugh.
Hey, well, but all I can think in my head is, fuck me, if you need to escape from that log cabin, you've got some fucking trekking to
Secluded. 20th of December 1990, Kay and Sean, which is the mum and the son, flew to Oakley to meet her sister, Kay's sister. So that is Sean's auntie, Claudia. Rolf, Linnea and Trisha were going to follow on. Sometimes they like to travel separately, sometimes they travel together. Kay, Sean and Claudia loaded up front car onto snowmobiles to take to the cabin. Halfway up they passed a man in his mid-20s. Now, it's very cold in this place.
It's not somewhere that people are just going to be out and about walking, is it?
It's minus 20 degrees.
It's very fucking secluded.
And obviously, they're wrapped up. When they see this man in his mid-20s, he's got trainers on, he's got jeans on, and a
Completely
light
not
jacket.
Completely
Completely not prepared. Kind of like when I wasn't prepared.
For
When I did Three Peaks, but that's another story. So they get to the cabin, all unpacked, they've eaten, everything's fine. Next day, Rolf arrives with 22-year-old Lene and 16-year-old Trisha. Kay told Rolf about this strange guy, and she wanted him to fetch the shotguns. Even though it's a quiet town, she wanted to be protected.
Something obviously stood out, didn't it?
Yeah. I think that it said there were been one shooting in 100 years, so you know,
Yeah.
it's a very quiet town. Claudia left that morning on the 21st of December, sorry. So that's the auntie.
Yep.
She left the morning. Family unpacked, decorated the cabin, wrapped the Christmas presents, all nice Christmassy stuff that you like doing. Went into town Christmas shopping, and Sean asked to stay the night at his Aunt Claudia's. So Sean went to stay at Aunt Claudia's. Rest of the family went to Kay's mum, Grandma,
Yep.
a lady called Beth Potts, 72 years old, and they stayed the night at Grandma's house. So 22nd December, 3 days before Christmas, at noon, Kay, Beth and Lene returned to the cabin. Rolf and Trisha had allegedly gone extra shopping. He might have wanted to get his wife a
Yeah, sneaky present.
bit, bit of lingerie. So, on way up to the cabins, on snowmobiles, Lene saw a figure in the master bedroom through the window as they're pulling up to the cabin. She thought it was a cousin, arrived early to surprise her because it were a massive family.
Yeah.
Lene ran straight inside. She's got her hands under warm tap because obviously it's freezing. Then, Lene sees a shadow out of the corner of her eye near the fridge. So she's laughing to herself, thinking it's a cousin
Yeah, messing
trying to
about.
play a trick on her. This man steps from behind the fridge and points a gun at her. He makes Lene shout at Mum and Grandma upstairs. Another man appears, and he's got really thick jam jar glasses. And he appeared, and he held a gun to Kay and Beth. Kay, the mother, pleaded with the men, "Take anything, I'll give you anything."
Yeah.
So, we've got two blokes now. One's got the jam jar glasses,
Yep.
one's got frizzy hair.
Yeah.
So I will call them Jam Jar and Frizzy. I will give you the names, but we'll just call them Jam Jar and Frizzy. So the man with the frizzy hair, no hesitation whatsoever, shoots Kay. She falls to the ground. He points it at Beth, the grandma, shoots her in the head.
Wow.
As Beth is struggling on the floor, he shoots her again, quoting, "This bitch won't die." Then they drag Lene into the bedroom, they tie her up, put a dirty sock in her mouth, duct tape over. Fucking dirty sock. Now, Jam Jar Glasses, when they've tied her up, he fetches in the family dog to Lene to sort of keep her company in some sort of weird way.
How very fucking noble of him.
That'll come back later on. So they go downstairs, they rob the jewellery, the money, whatever they can get their hands on. Then they move Kay's and Beth's body onto the patio and they cover it in snow. So poor Lene at this time is tied up in the bedroom, and she knows her father and sister are on the way.
They're going to be coming back.
Yeah, and she's got no way to fucking warn them.
Yeah.
So Rolf and Trisha pull up at about 2:45. Frizzy held the gun to Lene's back, and Jam Jar pointed the gun at Rolf and Trisha. Rolf and Lene, it's said, held a look, and Lene says that the way she looked at her dad knew something horrible had happened to Kay and to Beth.
Yeah.
Yet again, Rolf pleads with these two men, "I will give you anything, take anything." So then Frizzy orders Jam Jar to shoot Rolf, but Jam Jar hesitates. So Frizzy goes to shoot him himself, and the gun jams, and the third time he shoots Rolf in the face.
Okay.
So Then Frizzy and Jam Jar get the petrol cans for the snowmobiles and start pouring it round the cabin. It said that they maybe thought about evidence because, get this, before the family arrive, Frizzy and Jam Jar are living it up in this cabin. Ooh, let's open these presents.
Fuck off.
Let's have something to eat.
Have a drink.
Yeah, and actually, if you go on YouTube, you can see a video of this happening, and it is fucking creepy. I will show you after this. So Frizzy shoots Rolf in the back of the head again, and he starts pouring petrol on Rolf's body. So they set the cabin on fire. They get Linnea and Trisha, the two young girls, to load all these stolen items that they've stolen from the cabin onto the snowmobiles, and they ride down to the garage on the snowmobiles with the guns in the back of the girls, so they're on the back of the girls on the snowmobiles.
Yeah.
As they're going down, the girls see their Uncle Randy, and Uncle Randy waves at the girls, and they didn't wave back. So Uncle Randy thinks, oh, it's probably just the boyfriends, they're just a bit embarrassed. So they load everything into this family car, a black Lincoln town car, and Frizzy and Jam Jar are planning to drive to New York and let the girls go when they get to New York. So these girls haven't got a fucking choice. They're going
in whether they like it or not.
So Frizzy's driving, Linnea's the passenger.
They've just seen what they've done to their entire fucking family.
Yeah.
These girls probably think that this is all going to end with them two being dead.
And Trisha and Jam Jar are in the back. Now, somehow, they pass Uncle Randy again, only this time he's in his car, and he waves and he yells because he sees these two girls, his nieces. And Frizzy and Jam Jar ask the girls, do you know him? And they're like, no, we don't know him. But Uncle Randy is like,
Something's not right
up here. So the next thing that happens is this random stranger starts coming towards Uncle Randy. I think he must have parked up somewhere, I'm not sure how it happens, but this person ain't got a jacket on, he's got no helmet on this snowmobile, no shoes on, bearing in mind it's minus 20 degrees.
Yeah.
This person's also covered in blood, he's got a really big swollen face, and then Uncle Randy realises, that's my brother, Rolf. So Rolf, you look confused, but Rolf tells Randy everything. Now,
how is he not dead?
The bullets that came out of this gun were birdshot bullets, and they're like little pellets. So they do damage, but
it's not like a proper bullet, is it?
Rolf is extremely lucky because obviously Beth and Kay got shot and they didn't survive.
Yeah.
But Rolf did, so he's obviously still very lucky, and it's amazing that, anyway.
I'm not sure I'd say he's lucky to be alive. His fucking family and his cabin's on fire.
Yeah. Rolf says that he played dead and he tried to put out the fire, but to no avail. I think, like a lot of things, the adrenaline will have got him through coming down on that snowmobile.
Yeah.
So, wow. So, Randy puts his brother in the car, starts calling 911, tells them everything, tells them about the girls, gives them a description of the car, and then he needs help for his brother because he's been fucking shot in the face. These girls are driving down Canyon Road, and as they're driving down this road, a police car passes them, and this police car does a U-turn and starts following the car. Now, I don't know if it's Copper's nose or it had come through on the radio.
Yeah, but he just knew to...
Yeah. And one thing we have been watching is a lot of traffic cops.
Police inspectors.
It's amazing
how
the
many
amount of times they just go, that don't look right.
Yeah. And they actually call it, don't they, the police nose?
Yeah.
You kind of get a feel.
So Jam Jar and Frizzy are freaking out.
Yeah.
Because this cop car's following them, and they get into a high-speed chase of, over 100 miles per hour. They actually forced their way through a police roadblock, so it's a pretty...
massive chase.
Yeah. The chase actually ended 65 kilometres away from the cabin, and eventually they lost control of the car and they spun out. The men were arrested swiftly. Around the same time that these men were arrested, Rolf was airlifted to hospital and made a full recovery.
Wow.
So the police said what were left at cabin wasn't very much. There were blood everywhere. It had obviously been ransacked, and they managed to find a video camera, and the tape was still in the video camera, and that of course was recorded by Jam Jar and Frizzy, from what I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
So that's what you can check out on YouTube if you want to. So Jam Jar, this is 22-year-old Edward Delly. Frizzy is Von Taylor, and he's 26. They both previously served time in the Utah State Pen. Jam Jar was in for arson, and Frizzy was in for aggravated burglary. So Jam Jar and Frizzy met at a halfway house, somewhere where you get back on track.
Yeah, basically when you've got nowhere else to go, that's where you get placed in it after prison.
And on 14th of December, they just fucked off. They just left.
Yeah.
They hitchhiked to Oakley. Apparently Frizzy's dad had a cabin up there, and they spent a week robbing and doing whatever they fucking did. And they passed the Tiede cabin on the 20th. So on the 20th is the day that Kay, Claudia and Sean saw the man.
Yeah.
And that man was Frizzy. And what he was doing, he was scoping out this cabin.
Scoping out area.
So they broke in on the 22nd of December. Like I said, they were there a few hours before.
Before family got back.
Opening the fucking presents, laughing and...
Knowing
Knowing the names as well, because the names are on the fucking present.
Yeah.
And it's bad, but do you know what it reminded me of? Bad Santa. Do you know when he fucking breaks in and he's having a shit and that? So I've just wrote Bad Santa. So, Jam Jar and Frizzy, they were charged with 2 counts of first degree murder, 1 count of attempted first degree murder, 2 counts of aggravated kidnapping, aggravated assault, theft, arson and failure to stop for police. Both pled not guilty by reason of insanity.
Oh, of course they fucking did.
It were looked into and they were both deemed fit to stand trial. So 5 months later, Frizzy pleads guilty to 2 counts of capital murder if all the other charges are dropped. Which is...
do you know what that is? Do you know what I find about it? Do you know what I find this about? Fucking control. Even up until the last minute, it's a control thing. Because even though he knows he's guilty of all those crimes, I tell you what, to save you going through a massive trial, I'll plead guilty to 2 counts of murder if you drop all others. Let's be honest, the 2 counts of murder is going to get you far longer in prison than the rest anyway, but it's still about having that fucking control right up until end.
So, at Frizzy's sentencing, the prosecution identified him as the ringleader of the 2. He'd shown no remorse and he had shot the 2 women.
Yeah.
And Rolf. Kay had been shot 5 times. 2 times in the chest, 1 time in the side, 1 time in the shoulder and 1 time in her upper arm. Beth, the grandma, had been shot 3 times, twice in the chest and once in the head. And it said that this was done with a 44 cal gun. What's brilliant about this is, allegedly, Frizzy had no idea that Rolf had survived. So when Rolf went into that car...
Oh, could you imagine?
His face must have been a fucking picture.
I bet his ass fell out.
So Frizzy was sentenced to death.
Good.
Jam Jar was still pleading not guilty, and his defence team was saying that he was led on by Taylor. He'd refused or hesitated to kill Rolf, and he'd fetched in this dog for Linnea to keep her company.
It is strange behaviour though, isn't it? And he did refuse to kill him. I'm not saying that he doesn't deserve to be in fucking jail, because he does.
Yeah. They found him guilty of second-degree murder, and they sentenced him to life in prison with the possibility of parole. The Tiede family actually sued the state because they said that they failed to detain these men, and it was known that these two men were in Oakley. So, the halfway house, Taylor had made a phone call to some guy in the halfway house, and he'd said, "Oh, we've been fucking robbing and I've seen this stuff." It got reported, but nothing done.
Nothing got done.
So the Tiede family were fucking pissed off.
And so the fucking should be.
So, September of 92, it was ruled that the state of Utah wasn't responsible. There were laws in place to protect them. So, in 2001, Linnea got a letter from Jam Jar saying, "Sorry, all this bullshit." And Linnea pondered on it for 10 years, and she wrote back, and she ended up forgiving him.
Okay. That's quite interesting.
Yeah. Rolf went on to marry a few times, I think. One of them being Kay's best friend.
Fucking hell. Wow.
Yeah. And sadly...
Maybe he just really fucking missed his wife.
Yeah.
It said that they met in the early 20s, they fell madly in love and they married, and that were it. That were their life.
In some sort of way, it were him being
close to his wife. Don't you be fucking marrying my best mate if I die, mate.
Sadly, he died in 2008 from cancer. Trisha and Linnea, they've gone on to marry, I think one or both of them have been divorced. Not that it matters, they've got kids, same with Sean.
Yep.
And they actually rebuilt the cabin, and they still
How do they still go? I suppose it's a way of being close to her as well, isn't it?
Jam Jar apparently has not appealed. Now Frizzy has appealed and failed 3 times. But before I end the case, a federal judge has overturned the death sentence that was given to inmate Von Lester Taylor after he was convicted for 2 Summit County murders that occurred 29 years ago. This is March 2020.
Fucking hell.
In her ruling last week, Judge Tenner says Taylor did not get an adequate defence from his public defender, which led to Taylor's guilty plea and his sentence to death row. So there's some more information that you can look up, but that's it. That's the Tiede
poor family.
It's
not often. It is not often that you come across a case that affects the family in that sort of magnitude.
Oh yeah.
Like obviously, it must be horrific when one of your family members get murdered or a part of a serial killer. Do you know what I mean? But like for your family to be just going on a yearly trip that you always go on.
Always go on. And something then, horrific happening.
Yeah, like that.
And then for him to rebuild the cabin and not letting...
They've not let them win, have they? They've not let them win. It's still their tradition.
I was blown away by Rolf.
Surviving. Well, you saw my face.
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Dragging himself down that hill in
that
20,
cold.
No clothes on hardly.
Yeah.
And I bet when he walked into that courtroom, it were a big fuck you.
100%. I'm going to watch that video.
So I hope you've enjoyed Terrifying and Twisted.
Episode 20.
And this one should be out on time.
Whoop whoop. We give each of a thumbs up there. We're so fucking sad. I hope you all have a lovely weekend. It will be over by the time this is out.
Yeah.
But I hope whatever you're doing, you have a lovely weekend, and we will be back in 2 weeks.
See you in 2.
See you soon.